This is the Double A Balls Podcast with your hosts.
See, now we're spitting hot fire and
Andrew Romanella.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about. I'll be the best cheerleader. Father Time apparently doesn't know Tom Brady's address.
And Anthony Rinaldi.
Love the hardwood. That's my passion. Houston, they don't have a problem. Listen, you don't even have to listen.
Now it's time for the show.
You for real? All of this for me? Pussy, alcohol, and weed. All of this for free? We ball hog.
Hello. Welcome into the Double A Balls Podcast, the second edition of the Friday Morning DAAB. I'm your host, Andrew Romanella, and on the line with me is my partner, Anthony Rinaldi.
Andrew, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing good, and it was a wacky few days in sports, so I'm glad we got the chance to get on the line and talk today. And I know we're trying to keep it quick, so let's dive right into this thing because we got some NBA on the slate. We have a little bit of NHL playoff update, and, of course, the MLB season, which is in full swing. But I want to start in the NBA because the playoff standings are finally out, and we've discussed this for the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what we thought would happen, how we thought it would shape up. And I'll tell you what, Anthony, the way the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference shaped up, it is going to be a fun NBA playoffs.
As I was listening to our episode 13 little recap, just want to make sure we sound good, you know. And we were talking about how we hope the Thunder don't play the Golden State Warriors. And boy, were we wrong on some of these matchups, right?
I can't believe that. I mean, I'm happy as a Thunder fan that they're in the 4 seed, but some of the changes that happened in the last day of the season were unbelievable.
That's actually I think that series, that 4-5 Thunder Jazz, is going to be the cat's meow, buddy. That's going to be my little heads up for you. I want to watch that matchup because I feel like both teams could probably make a little bit of a run, but I feel like they're just not quite at Houston Golden State level. But listen, it's the playoffs. You win 4 games and you move on.
Do you feel like this year's NBA playoffs are taking on more of a competitive feel? I know we haven't seen a game yet, but just in terms of the closeness of everybody's record from 3 through 8 in both the Eastern and Western Conference, the fact that there are superstars spread out between different teams in the league, do you feel like we're going into this thing saying, hey, for the first time in what feels like a century, we're actually excited for the first round of the NBA playoffs?
I have to agree with that concept because look, think about last year. I mean, Cleveland and Golden State both went, undefeated, right? 12-0 into the championship round?
Yep.
So I think, look at these quick matchups. You got Bucks and Celtics, Heat Sixers, Wizards Raptors, Pacers and Cavs. Those are the ones out of the East. I think, besides, obviously I'm rocking with my Cleveland pick because I
love that Pacers-Cavs series, though.
Why do you love the Pacers so much? You're like Mr. Indiana. What do you like?
They have such a chip on their shoulder because everybody thought they were going to be so bad. And now they found themselves in the 5 spot of the East. They were 14 games over 500.
Listen, that's not a shabby record. I think the Knicks were 30 games under 500.
And I just love seeing a team that I know is going to go up against Cleveland and isn't afraid of them. And I don't think the Indiana Pacers are afraid of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right. I agree with that. I don't think anybody should be afraid of the Cavaliers. But the mere fact that LeBron's been there 7 times in a row to the ship, what's going to stop him from getting to his 8th?
So Anthony gave you the rundown on the Eastern Conference matchups were a fantastic one. I want to give you the rundown on the Western Conference ones as well because it almost feels like both conferences mirrored themselves this season. Houston in the 1 against Minnesota in the 8. Golden State in the 2 against San Antonio in the 7. We'll talk about that in a second. Portland in the 3. New Orleans in the 6. And then, of course, as Anthony mentioned before, OKC in the 4 versus Utah in the 5. I can't help to look at Golden State versus San Antonio. And, Anthony, I know Kawhi Leonard's not going to play the remainder of this year. And I know that's been a funky situation with Kawhi Leonard. Well, and San Antonio's not really that good. Really, they're just living on LaMarcus Aldridge and the production he brings day in and day out. But doesn't it just kind of make you raise an eyebrow when Greg Popovich and all of his history go into the first round playing the Golden State Warriors?
I can't say that matchup is the scariest for my Warriors. and that's right. That's my Warriors because I've kind of donned the Warriors as my
Once you put the bananas on a team.
as my postseason team in general, just because the Knicks are never there. So I got to have a rooting interest something in the months of April, May, and June for basketball.
Right.
So we'll rock the Warriors. I hear they're pretty good. I think the Warriors take that game in 6. To tell you the truth, I'll give the Spurs 2, but I just because that's just respect to Greg Popovich. He'll figure out how to get a win here or there. LaMarcus Aldridge is definitely going to give some fits there in the middle. We'll see if Draymond Green and his kick to the Jubilees heals up, but he's prepared for a big matchup against a big man.
And if you think about it, last year in the first game of the series, Golden State versus San Antonio, when Kawhi got hurt, San Antonio was killing the Warriors. Kawhi gets hurt, who was on fire. Golden State makes a huge comeback, and then all of a sudden goes on to blow out San Antonio and go on and win their second championship in 3 years. So a little bit of rematch action, except obviously missing one of the key components in Kawhi Leonard. Before we move on from basketball, we're on the topic of the 5 through 8 seeds right now and what they could possibly do to a 1 through 4 seed. Anthony, if I asked you both one team in the East and one team in the West that you believed had the best for an upset, what teams would you tell me?
Andrew, you read my mind. I literally wrote down word for word verbatim question.
Same page on this Friday morning.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a lie. I didn't write that down. It just sounded like a good thing to say. I could say the Bucks versus the Celtics because that's probably what everyone's going to look for as the big upset because Celtics are coming in wounded. But I'm gonna go on a ledge here and give me the Wizards over the Raptors.
Yeah. Is that because you just don't feel like the Raptors are a good enough playoff team, as we've talked about before?
No, I feel like it's either the Raptors are going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals or they're going to be a bounce in the first round. I feel like it's either or with them. But I just think that backcourt of John Wall and Bradley Beal is going to match up nice against DeRozan and Lowry. I mean, that right there is a matchup you definitely want to watch. And I think that kicks off Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
I can't wait for this, Andrew. Playoff basketball, playoff hardwood.
All right, now give me what you got in the Western Conference.
Western Conference, I'm going to keep it simple, stupid. Is it really an upset? I don't think so. But give me the Jazz over your Thunder.
Okay.
And the 5-4 matchup. It's not quite upset.
It's not. Is it an upset? No, but because they have the exact same record. But in terms of what 5 through 8 seed could beat, you're spot on.
Right. I don't think the Spurs, Timberwolves, Pelicans really match up at all against those other 3 teams. So give me the Jazz. Let me see what Donovan Mitchell can do.
All right, and for me, I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks, which I thought you were going to take the first time around. Now, does it scare me that they're playing the Celtics? Would I have rather them end up against any other team? Yeah, sure, because I just feel like Brad Stevens is that good of a coach. Forget who's injured on the Celtics sidelines. I think Brad Stevens is that good of a tactical game manager that he can find a way to beat any team with any player on his roster. But besides the fact, at the end of the day, when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your roster, you have an opportunity to upset anybody. That's a young team. They're developing. I just feel like you could catch Boston sleep at the switch in the first round maybe. I don't know why. Milwaukee just has been one of those teams all year that I feel like is so close to being a top 4 team in this conference. They're 1 or 2 guys away that maybe in the first round they could surprise and upset. And then in the Western Conference, for me, I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Utah Jazz as well. It hurts me dearly to make that pick. I am so excited for the Thunder. I'm pumped that Russell Westbrook got 20 rebounds the other night, and for the second time in as many years and for the first time in NBA history, averaged a triple-double for an entire season twice in a row. That's unbelievable. I know we talked about that on Cast 13, the 18 rebounds in the second-to-last game, 20 in the last. But I do give Utah the best chance there just because the other matchups just don't make any sense to me. And obviously the last thing to watch in the NBA for all of you out there is the 76ers, who came in with a 16 game winning streak and have secured the 3 seed, as we mentioned before, in the East. And that is their first playoff appearance since 2012. So a lot of good storylines in the NBA as those playoffs get kicked off this weekend. Something for you people to watch. Playoffs that already got kicked off already, Anthony Rinaldi, is the NHL. And then the first 2 nights on Wednesday and Thursday, as constituted, the NHL playoffs have been very interesting.
A lot of high-scoring events there, Andrew. I'm looking for the scores here. We playing baseball or hockey? What are we doing?
And that was the first thought on my today's show. And I had a stat that I had found. The Tampa Bay Lightning, and in watching the pregame and the postgame for the Devils, who lost to the Lightning in Game 1 of the series last night, 5-2. Deb Placey was talking on the Devils broadcast about how the Tampa Bay Lightning had scored the most goals in the NHL this season at 290. And she was talking about how there were a lot of teams in the NHL, because of the way the NHL is going this year, that are fast, that are quick, and that are centered around their offensive ability. And you could see it being very high-scoring affairs. Well, to that point, if you go to the first night of the playoffs, you had Pittsburgh beating Philly 7-0. Sidney Crosby had a hat trick in that game, 5 total scores for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Anthony, it wasn't really even a contest in Pennsylvania.
I feel like Pittsburgh steamrolled Philadelphia this year.
Yes. That is 5 wins now for the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Philadelphia Flyers. And then a few more high-scoring affairs last night. The Tampa Bay Lightning, as I mentioned before, beat the Devils 5-2. The Boston Bruins beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is going to be a chippy series and fun to watch.
I was going to ask you about that Cardi hit, man. That was brutal. Do you think it was you thought it was a little offensive? Like, how could you launch yourself at a dude who's literally on all fours on the ice?
Anytime I hear the word launch and somebody towards somebody, no matter what position the defenseless player is in, to me, it just becomes an illegal line to be crossed. My question to you is there a suspension coming?
I believe he's probably going to get now. My bet is 3 games.
Okay, because the playoffs are a dicey situation. We saw this, and it was a 1 game in the NBA with Draymond Green a few years ago, but people believe that changed the entire course of that series. 3 games potentially put you out for the rest of the series if it's a sweep.
Right. Didn't that one? I believe there's another guy got a game suspension. Drew Doughty. I think he got a 1-gamer and his hit was to a guy in the head. I don't think it was nearly as.
I don't think it was as bad either.
Right. So if you give him 1, you got to give Cardi at least maybe 2.
And if you go on
3, and he'll appeal it, come down to 2. I don't know. He's got to sit for a little bit. I mean, those are the hits you're trying to get out of football. You're trying to get him out of hockey. You're trying to get him out of baseball. That's the stuff that's uncalled for. Dude wasn't even looking. He was on all fours, facing the different direction, and you saw him skate towards him and then launch his hips into his head into the boards.
The one thing that comes to my mind always is the word intent, and it's so hard to judge intent, and that's what is so tough about making judgment calls on suspensions. But at the end of the day, your eyes don't lie, Anthony. And to your point right there, I think you just saw it was dirty. I think I agree. It's 3. He probably appeals down to 2, but it should be multiple. Definitely should not just be 1 game. Moving on in the NHL for your update today, the Columbus Blue Jackets defeated the Washington Capitals 4-3 in overtime. I said it on the last cast, and I'm going to say it again. Washington has to prove they can get over the bugaboo of winning in the playoffs. Columbus is a team that came in playing hot under John Tortorella. I'll tell you what, I know it's the first game, but when you get 1 and you're the away team of the first 2 in a series, that's a huge start for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I mean, is Ovechkin serious? I mean, how does this dude keep on losing in the second round? They every year I feel like they score like 1,000 points, but once it comes to playoffs times, they get all tight and nervous, and they play like a bunch of girls.
And the worst part about this game was that they had a 2-0 lead in the first period. Now, a 2-0 lead in hockey is the hardest lead to keep, but they had a 2-0 lead in the first period. They came out on fire. They were playing well in the first period, and then all of a sudden, Columbus got a goal in the second, and then came out in the third period, and it just felt like, even though the Capitals were able to score, it just felt like ice had already shifted is what I'm trying to say, and it was just no coming back. So need a big game to bounce back, especially at home if you're the Washington Capitals. And Sergei Bobrovsky for the Capitals for the Columbus Blue Jackets, the starting goaltender, had a great day. He's another guy that you look at and people have talked about has not had great playoff history and individually, et cetera, et cetera. So a few different storylines to watch in the NHL. And just to finish out your scoring update, just so everybody knows what is going on around the sports world, the San Jose Sharks defeated the Anaheim Mighty Ducks on Thursday night.
Andrew, what did I tell you? Sharks always beat Ducks. Come on.
You are correct, by a score of 3-0. So San Jose also takes a game on the road in Nashville at home, as we assumed, beat the Colorado Avalanche 5-2. And then to finish out the Wednesday night games, Winnipeg beats Minnesota 3-2, and the Las Vegas Golden Knights defeat the LA Kings for the first win in Vegas Golden Knights playoff history in Las Vegas, 1-0.
AKA the misfits of hockey, still rolling. Las Vegas, it's a hell of a story. I want to thank the Nashville Predators. Right? They're the Predators.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for the bananas last night. Appreciate it.
Hey, that's a good team to be putting your bananas on if you want them to be winning in this playoffs. And for Las Vegas, don't be fooled. Even though they are called an expansion team, that is by far from an expansion team with the playoff experience on that roster, starting with their goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury, who is a Stanley Cup winner, before moving forward on this Friday morning DAAB. Remember, you can get the Double A Balls podcast at DAABpodcast.com on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean. Tweet us and Instagram us at Double A Balls on both. Find the podcast, and of course, hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a 5-star rating, write a review, and visit poweronperformance.com for your Double A Balls podcast apparel. One more sport on the docket on this Friday morning, Anthony Rinaldi, and that is Major League Baseball. And the storylines that we expected going into this season have kind of transformed into be a little bit different, and I'm starting with your Bronx Bombers.
Last night's game was brutal. The game before the fight was brutal. I guess the fight itself was kind of entertaining. I mean, that's Yankee Sox. That's just rekindling that AL East mentality of these guys are going to stand in front of us. We got to beat them, so let's get after it. But Andrew, as a baseball guru that you are, did you think that slide was letter of the law? It was not a no. It wasn't. It technically wasn't.
There's the fine line, but I think here's my problem with it, Anthony, and this has nothing to do with me not being a Yankees guy, because I think you've learned about me, my Dow, that I like baseball enough to care a little bit more beyond the uniform the team is wearing, if I like a team or not. But that's besides the point. What bothered me is you're playing the 11th game of the season for the Red Sox and the 12th game of the season at that time for the New York Yankees. I understand you want to go in hard. You just lost 14-1. You're trying to reestablish the fact that you have some type of bravado, some type of swag on your sidelines. You want to make sure you win this game. It is kind of an important game early on in your year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you are only 11 games in. If you want to slide in hard, slide in hard. But make sure your feet don't go past the bag. When I see half of your body go past the bag, yes, to your point, Anthony, it is a legal slide by definition. If you saw the way the leg of Brock Holt went out, I think it's pretty reasonable for me and anybody else just to simply say, man, that barely missed being a serious injury. You love that Tyler Austin wants to go in hard. We teach it. You want to keep seeing it. But I think that you can go in hard and not drive yourself past the bag and potentially injure somebody.
Yeah, obviously you don't want to injure the other player. That's not the intent. Obviously, he's a young guy. He's trying to make his bones in the MLB. He's trying to get some playing time, showing the coach he's hustling. I'm going to give him a little bit of forward momentum. Took him into Brock Holt's leg.
Truth.
I get the unwritten rules of baseball. Obviously, Boston was not happy, so I don't know why they waited 4 innings to throw at him. I believe he actually got up in the 4th inning right after that happened.
That's what bothered me about the whole
situation. Probably could have beamed them right there, but obviously they say Brock Holt is one of these journeymen who's real liked in the clubhouse. He's a real team guy. He plays a lot of positions, so everybody loves him. He just puts into the time, he puts in the work. So they took offense, they said, to that nasty slide. But listen, he was trying to make a play, and I blame baseball because they took away the neighborhood rule. He would have nowhere been near that bag, theoretically, if the old rule was in place, because he would have turned 2 by being a few feet off the bag, but still being, in the neighborhood.
That's where instant replay is killing you just a little bit in baseball, because you're right. If that's old school baseball, Brock Holt's foot, he's not worried about his foot touching the bag because you were allowed some type of radius around the second base bag to slide your foot. It looked like a clean double play. You might not have fully hit the bag, but we're saving these guys' legs. And that's why I agree with 50% of what happened. I just am always going to turn back to, it's so early in the year. You can have a takeout slide where you go straight in and pop up and you affect it just as much as if you dive through and really kind of take out his legs. Either way, it happened. What I really don't agree with, though, Anthony, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that Joe Kelly was suspended for 6 games and Tyler Austin was suspended for 5.
Well, position player and a relief pitcher.
Well, my issue with it is not, I understand that. You have to suspend the pitcher for more games because you have to account for the days that he doesn't throw, so it has to be fair. I understand that. I don't think Tyler Austin deserved 5 games.
Yeah, I think that might be a little excessive, but he did.
If by definition he did not break the rule, right?
Right.
And by definition, he didn't start a fight. He didn't throw at the Red Sox. He did charge the mound, rightfully so. He should be suspended for charging the mound and throwing haymakers. I do understand that. But if you got 2 98-mile-per-hour fastballs towards your chin and one of them laced you in the ribs, you'd probably charge the mound too. So I just think 5 is a little bit much if Joe Kelly's getting 6. If they give Joe Kelly 10 and you give Tyler Austin 5, I'm okay with that. But I just don't think Tyler Austin's as much in the wrong here as Joe Kelly is, because at the end of the day, throwing at somebody intentionally is not legal. You can be thrown out for that, but sliding into the base the way Tyler Austin slid in is legal. So you shouldn't be suspended.
I think he'll obviously appeal that, maybe get it knocked down to 4-3. I just think Rob Manfred, commissioner of baseball, was just trying to set a precedent. I guess they're trying to maybe get this charge the mound idea out of the players' heads. And
it's true.
They had Mark Teixeira on ESPN Radio yesterday's Michael Kay show. He said
Great interview.
He never charged the mound just because he knew. He could have many times. He said but he didn't want to put that pressure on his other teammates to pick up his slack or have his pitcher have to go and then throw 98-mile fastball at someone to get retribution for getting spiked. So he was like, listen, he's like, it's part of baseball. He's like, as a middle infielder, you got to know that if someone's barreling down at you second base, you're probably going to get hit. So, it is what it is. It's Yankees-Red Sox, Andrew. I love the fact the Yankees won that game. If they would have lost that game, that would have been just, I think, brutal for the player mentality of the Yankees going forward, because we had an 8-1 lead at one point. Then all of a sudden it was 8-6, and then it was 10-6, and it was a brawl. Then Chapman struggled in the ninth. The Yankee squad is just up and down right now. It's almost, not to say brutal to be a fan, but we had such high expectations, and now we're playing under 500 ball. But we're only 13 games in, Andrew, and your Mets seem to be rolling right now.
Yeah, it's early. The Red Sox ended up getting the last laugh to finish it off, winning the series 2 out of 3. But like you said, there's a lot of baseball left. These two teams play 16 more games, and you are right. The Mets are rolling 10-1, best start in franchise history. They were off last night on Thursday, so they were able to sit idle and watch the rest of the teams in their division play. And it's kind of crazy if you look at the NL East right now, Anthony, again, it is early, and I'm tempering my expectations. I am excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm pumped about the Mets. I'm fired up about the way they're playing. Everybody looks good. The way their offense is rolling right now is getting me the most excited. But at the end of the day, what's kind of getting me the most excited is looking at the rest of the NL East, and I'm going down the line going, the Braves are 7-5. The Phillies are 6-5. The Nationals are 6-7. And that's what I love to see, because I truly do believe we are better than the Braves, the Phillies, and the Marlins, and we'll take a majority of the games in those two series, but it was the Nationals I was the most worried about. And right now, and again, they swept them in one series they've played so far. Again, it's early in the year, but that's the one thing I think I'm most excited about, because the NL East now no longer looks like you just have to find a way to get the wild card. It actually looks like it could be winnable for the Mets.
The Nationals look like the Yankees right now. Don't really want to win. They'll win some games here and there, but the Mets, listen, I know it's early. It's 11. They're 11 games in. Yankees are 13 games in. But you want to start putting your distance between you and your opponents, right? So the fact that the Nationals are 6-7, the Mets are 10-1, you get a nice little cushion already.
Right.
And I think your boy Dave Rothenberg said it. At this great start, as long as the Mets go, I think 500 the rest of the way, I think they'll have 85 wins.
Yeah, and that's what happened. I said this to you earlier. That's what happened in 2015 when they went on that big winning streak early. They were not that good of a baseball team for 85% of that season, but in the 50% that they were, it was early and it was late, and it was when they exactly needed to. But I think the difference between this team right now is, Anthony, is they're playing team baseball. They're getting team wins. They're coming from behind. They're building on leads. They're getting quality starting pitching, quality bullpen help. And they're not relying on the home run, which is, to me, the key at the end of the day.
Mickey Callaway said he's going to love his players, and they're going to love this locker room. Clearly, he's whatever he's preaching, they're listening.
They're listening, and it is working for the New York Mets. And lastly, before we finish up this Friday morning dab, Shohei Ohtani, I just want to give you the stat line on him because we've talked about him a lot recently. He's 9 for 26 at the dish right now, Anthony. He's hitting 346. He's got 3 home runs and 11 RBIs. And then on the mound, 2-0 with a 2.08 ERA in his 2 starts. There's nothing else the Angels could have asked for.
He is exactly what they thought he was, and they said it. That I believe the Angels GM literally fell to the floor in adulation and like tears when he heard that Ohtani's agent was calling them and saying he's picking the Angels, because he knew that, or at least in their mind, this was the one piece that could put him, over the hump there in the West. And it looks like, at 11-3, yeah, Houston's off to 9-4, and the rest of the division is kind of mediocre. I think the Angels. Listen, I got Mike Trout fantasy, so I know what kind of studs they have on their roster. I think this is legit, and Ohtani's he's been plastering for more playing time.
Yeah, he wants to get more bats.
Why not? Dude's hitting 346, like you said.
It's true.
Why not get him in the lineup?
Well, his next start, for the people out there that want to see Shohei Ohtani on the mound, his next start is going to be this Sunday, a 2:15 start. They are at Kansas City. Shohei Ohtani will be on the mound against the Kansas City Royals. So that'll be your next chance to see him throw. I highly suggest tuning in on Sunday for that game, and as well as the Mets and the Brewers on Sunday. Get a look at that New York Mets team against what I predicted at the beginning of the year was going to be a potential wild card team in Milwaukee. So for me, that's the games to watch this weekend in the MLB. And the other one to kind of take a look at is your New York Yankees, to see if they can get off the schneid. They are traveling to Detroit this weekend. Detroit's under 500, so
yeah, you got to take all 3 there. Andrew.
Exactly, you read my mind. It's a team that you have to beat 100%. So that is your Friday morning dab with the DAAB podcast. I'm going to remind you before we get out of here to follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram.
Social media blitz.
At AA Balls on both, DAABpodcast.com. Download, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean, get your apparel, the whole 9 yards. Anthony, it has been an enjoyable Friday morning, my man. I am excited for the playoffs and the weekend that we have in store.
Andrew, Tuesday is going to be the jump off. We're going to see a little playoff picture update in hockey for sure, as well as NBA kicking off, and hopefully the Yankees figure it out and maybe start playing like the Mets. Get me the hell out of here, Andrew. Have a good weekend.
The AA Ball Podcast, we are out.
This has been the AA Balls Podcast, powered by Power Arm Performance, your leader in baseball and softball training apparel.
Visit www.poweronperformance.com to get your apparel and start training like the pros today.